Why use completing the square for quadratic roots? Imagine trying to solve a puzzle where some pieces fit perfectly and others need a little reshaping. Completing the square is like reshaping parts of a quadratic puzzle to see the full picture clearly. When you work with quadratic equations, you often want to find the roots, or the values of that make the equation true. Completing the square is a handy method because it transforms the quadratic into a perfect square trinomial, making it easier to solve. Starting with the standard form of a quadratic equation, which is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, the first step is to divide everything by a. This simplifies the equation and makes the coefficient of x squared equal to 1. Next, you move the constant term to the other side of the equation. Now, to complete the square, you take half of the coefficient of x, square it, and add that to both sides. This creates a perfect square trinomial on one side, which can be written as a binomial squared. Once you have the quadratic in this form, solving becomes straightforward. You take the square root of both sides, remembering to include both positive and negative roots. Then, you isolate by subtracting or adding as needed. This process works for any quadratic equation, whether the roots are real numbers or complex numbers. One reason to use completing the square is that it helps you understand why the roots are what they are. Instead of just plugging into a formula, you see the structure of the quadratic and how the roots relate to the shape of the parabola. It also helps you find the vertex of the parabola, which is the highest or lowest point, giving you more insight into the graph. Completing the square is also the foundation for deriving the quadratic formula, which is a universal method for solving quadratic equations. Knowing how to complete the square deepens your understanding of the relationship between the coefficients and the roots. Plus, this method is useful in calculus for solving integration problems involving quadratic expressions. In short, completing the square is used for finding roots because it works for all types of quadratic equations, makes solving easier by turning the equation into a perfect square, and helps you see the connection between the algebra and the graph of the quadratic function. It's a simple, reliable way to understand and solve these equations step by step.